Hey everyone, I'm Chris Lesniak,
And I'm Rob Byer, and this is
the Debate Math Podcast. So today we want to talk about AP Stats, which is the final math course for some students in high school and sometimes seen as an alternative to AP Calculus.
and some say that the AP Stats course as is really great, and some might disagree.
So we thought that would be a great topic to debate. So today we have two teams of two debating the resolution AP Stats is great.
Here debating that for the resolution that AP Stats is great, we have two wonderful educators. First up is National Board Certified Teacher in her 29th year of education, who has served as an AP reader since 2010. She leads AP Summer Institutes and Stats and served on the instructional design team for AP Stats. She's also a Desmos certified presenter and fellow. Please welcome Lee Notaro. Hi, Lee.
Hey there. I'm very excited to be here.
Can you tell our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
Yes, I am currently teaching in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at Moravian University. And this semester, I am supervising student teachers, teaching math for elementary education and elementary statistics.
Awesome. And arguing along with her is 25-year veteran teacher, AP Stats teacher, and reader, and also Desmos certified presenter and fellow, Bob Lachaux. Hi, Bob.
Hi, good morning, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Could you let us know and let the readers or listeners know where you are and what your current role is?
Sure. I teach at Hatboro Horsham High School right outside of Philadelphia. I've been here for 25 years. I also had a stint as a academic coach within my district. And this year I started teaching at the College of New Jersey, a basic statistics course there.
Awesome. All right. So now the question we want to ask all of our guests: when did math first become controversial to you? Lee, we're going to start with you. When did math first become controversial to you?
It was actually probably early on in my career when graphing calculators first came on the scene and were being handed to every single student. There was definitely a debate in our department about what students should be able to do, or with a calculator versus without a calculator, and that was caused a lot of controversy for sure.
And Bob, when did math first become controversial to you?
Yeah, it's such a deep question. I recall a course I had at in my undergrad years. It was a differential equations course, and it was taught by a grizzled veteran of the classroom. And I recall on day one, he turned to us all and said, "In this course, we are going to enter the realm of the religion of mathematics." And he turned to the board and said under his breath, "And women are not ordained." And that was a telling moment as you look around the room and you think, what did he just say there? Did he just say what I think he said? And I think it was the first time where I realized that there was this network and this expectation of what a mathematician should be, and that it was part of my mission and part of my educational experience to try to break that mold and to embrace and allow as many people into the mathematics world as possible.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you both. Yeah, both of those are very controversial for sure.
We all
Chris.
dropped our jaws at that story there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and on the other side of this debate, we have a team of two arguing against the resolution, against the statement that AP Stats is great. And first up is National Board Certified Teacher, Presidential Award finalist, and Chair of Math Department at the Episcopal School in Los Angeles, AP Stats teacher and reader, and Math for America LA Master Teacher, Bill Thill. Hi, Bill.
Hi, y'all. How you
Morning.
doing?
Can you tell
Good
our
to see you.
listeners where you are and what your current role is?
Sure. I am in sunny West Hollywood, USA, California. I am a teacher at ESLA, or the Episcopal School of Los Angeles. I'm teaching 12th grade statistics, 10th grade integrated math 3, and 6th grade math. And I am a department chair.
That is a wide range there. And arguing along with him is veteran teacher since 1994, who started teaching AP Stats in 2003 and became an exam reader in 2009, a recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching in 2013, an author who has written materials and consulted on textbooks for AP Stats, and was a co-author of 5 Steps to a 5 on the AP Stats exam. Corey Andreessen. Hi, Corey.
Hi,
How's it going? Can you let us know where you are and what your current role is?
I am in Wassenaar in the Netherlands. I teach high school math and AP statistics at the American School of The Hague.
Very good. And now the question we want to ask all of our guests: when did math first become controversial to you? And Bill, I'll start with you. When did math first become controversial to you?
Yeah, I probably would say as an undergraduate, I was studying mathematics, and I had a senior thesis advisor in like number theory, really like old school classical kind of stuff. And I was studying that with him doing a thesis. But my favorite teacher was my statistics teacher. She was also involved in some of the early research and early work on using computers to teach calculus in the early 90s. And my thesis advisor went in on just trying to discredit and trying to kind of just assume a really rigid set of standards for what mathematics should and could be in teaching. And I never saw such a fierce debate in math that was kind of unkind, unfortunately. So that opened my eyes.
Great. And Corey, when did math first become controversial to you?
Math has never been controversial to me. But the first time I saw any controversy, I guess, was when NCTM published their standards, and then there was actually backlash to it, which kind of caught me off guard. It seemed like such a common sense and reasonable thing, and the back to the basics push started almost immediately. And I just thought how interesting it is that the US repeatedly lags behind other countries in mathematics, and the older kids get, the worse that gets. And every time we come up with a way to address it, everybody wants to go back to the stuff that got us there in the first place. So that was my first experience with controversy in mathematics.
Thank you. Thank you both. And with that, let's get into the debate. And we begin with opening statements from each of our speakers. You each have 2 minutes to present your arguments. And based on a coin flip before this recording, we're starting with the pro side. So here, arguing that AP Stats is great is Lee Natero. And Lee, you're up first, and your time begins now.
My claim is that AP Statistics is great. It's a robust course designed to prepare students not only for college, but for the statistical reasoning needed in today's society. I have 3 warrants for this. 1, it contains topics that cut across statistics courses at many colleges: data collection, exploratory data analysis, probability, regression, and 1 variable and 2 variable inference. The course is seen as valuable by many higher education institutions. In fact, 1,964 colleges and universities across the United States give credit for AP exam scores of 3 and above. My second warrant is that the new course and exam description for AP Statistics was released in 2019, and it not only clarified course content, it articulated 4 main skills found within the course: selecting statistical methods, data analysis, using probability and simulation, and statistical argumentation. These skills are integrated throughout the course content and are at the heart of what it means to do statistics. Plus, the nature of the free response portion of the AP exam lends itself to demonstrating these statistical reasoning skills. The last free response question is specifically designed to have students demonstrate the transfer of the skills learned to unfamiliar settings and requires them to extend their reasoning. And third, the course promotes the kind of statistical literacy endorsed by the 2020 GAISE Report, which says that, quote, all students should leave secondary school prepared to live and work in a data-driven world. Because of what students learn in AP Statistics, they understand that a news headline like 27% of high school students vape is a point estimate, and that there's variability associated with that estimate. Additionally, when students hear a phrase like placebo-controlled double-blind experiment, they know what those words mean and why they are important in determining statistical significance. Developing statistical reasoning and savvy consumers of statistics are at the heart of AP Statistics.
Thank you. And now we will hear from the opposing side with Bill Thill. Bill, you have 2 minutes, and your time begins now.
Hey, y'all. AP Statistics used to be great, and it needs a revamp. Doing statistics means engaging in the statistical investigation process, creating a valid question, collecting relevant data properly, understanding what the data say, making proper conclusions from data. For all statisticians, this work is done with technology and computers. The current course as written does not incentivize modern statistical practice. Since the course's inception in 1997, students have much greater access to computational power. The working memory of the most basic smartphone is far greater than the memory of the most powerful laptops that existed in the course's inception in 1997. Despite this, there have been very few changes in what students learn and how they are expected to do statistical work. The only computational tool allowed to show their ability to conduct a statistical investigation is a TI-84 graphing calculator. This device costs well over $100, has a measly 128 kilobytes of RAM, and is older than all of the students who take the course. It can't perform exploratory data analysis, organize data, or perform simulations. As a result, students are left working with tiny data sets, random digit tables, outdated inference procedures, and memorizing sentence frames as substitutes for doing real statistics. Students have the capacity to write programs, wrangle data, create data visualizations, and run simulations on the most basic cell phone or laptop. These are essential skills that high school students can develop if they are incorporated into the existing AP Statistics course. It's time for AP Statistics to enter the 21st century and revamp what we can give our students.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the pro side again with Bob Lachelle. Bob, you have 2 minutes. And
Thank you, Chris.
Begins now.
Thank you, Chris. Friends, I'm approaching my 20th year of teaching AP Statistics, yet I still recall a slice of wisdom I was offered by a veteran teacher as I was getting ready to teach stats for the first time. You'll instantly become the loneliest person in your department, the colleague offered. And this is a true statement in many ways. While the algebra and geometry teachers in my school readily share teaching strategies, it's unlikely I'll be able to start a conversation about chi-square tests in our planning room. AP Stats holds unique real estate in the suburbs of math course maps. But I don't feel lonely. The AP Stats online resource community is the most robust, actionable, and ongoing professional development I've been a part of in 25 years of teaching and should be a model to emulate for other math courses and disciplines. Let's embrace the robust experiences that carefully crafted and implemented AP Stats course can provide and admire the professional development model the AP Stats community has nurtured. The American Statistical Association document Stats Education of Teachers advocates for such an inclusive system of teacher PD. Quote, the statistical education of teachers can be greatly strengthened by the growth of a statistics education community that includes statisticians as one of many constituencies committed to working together to improve statistics instruction at all levels. The AP Stats online community facilitates such collaboration and can help ensure that statistics and data science courses are designed using authentic data with ample opportunity for investigation and discussion. Here are just some examples of such outreach. On the AP Stats Facebook community, over 3,000 members strong, teachers and college professors regularly discuss and clarify nuanced ideas, share teaching strategies and activities, and debate best practices. Teachers new to statistics can pose questions and have their concerns answered by a wide cross-section of the stats teaching community. Websites created by AP Stats teaching veterans like StatsMedic and Skew to Script provide lessons featuring authentic data and discussion prompts with an opportunity to discuss teaching strategies and resources for non-AP courses through online forums. In each of these venues, experts in the teaching of statistics, such as textbook authors, college professors, and veteran teachers are all involved in the conversation. I encourage you to embrace the excitement of AP Stats and let the AP Stats online community serve as a self-guided professional development model for others to follow.
Thank you, Bob. And now we will hear from the opposing side once again with Corey Andreessen. Corey, you have 2 minutes and your time begins now.
I don't think I'm really going to argue that AP Stats isn't great. I think AP Stats is great, but I think AP Stats missed a big opportunity with their recent revamp to join the 21st century, both practically, as Bill described, and pedagogically. All the things about the AP Stat community that Lee and Bob described are absolutely correct, but those would be correct if we embrace the changes that Bill and I are talking about. What my big concern with the pedagogy is that the entire decision about college credit is based on 1 3-hour exam. And that goes against everything we know pedagogically about how we should be assessing what students know and can do. And it's not necessary to base it all on one exam. We've seen in the IB program, they have an exam, but they also have an artifact where students have to produce a paper that they spend a great deal of time working on. We see it in other AP courses. AP Art doesn't base their grade on an exam. The students produce artifacts. And I would like to see something like that become a part of how we assess AP statistics. The limitations to calculators, I know equity was often argued as the reason for calculators instead of computers, but we have an AP computer science course. So apparently we are no longer feeling that students don't have access to computers. And I think we could do a much better job with the pedagogy if students were able to do legitimate statistical research using technology like a laptop.
Okay, thank you all. That was great. I hear, of course, lots of agreement. I think all four of you, in many ways, enjoy stats and think there's good stuff there. But there's some disagreement about like how it's adapting or the use of technology, and Corey brought up the testing at the end. So that will take us into our questioning round.
And the first question actually goes to both sides. Students and families are often trying to choose between AP Calc and AP Stats. What are some valuable things that currently are in the AP Stats that you would like to share with them? We'll actually start with Bill and Corey, and either one of you can jump in, but we'll start with your side first.
Well, I often tell students that because of admissions office requirements, AP Calculus is better for getting you into college. But when I hear back from students, AP Statistics is much more useful once you're there. I get emails back from students regularly, both students who did well in my AP Stat course and students who didn't. Some who didn't pass the AP exam and are taking statistics at university, and they email me to tell me they're the only ones that know what's going on in the class because of how much they've learned. I had a student in a photography class talk about how they were, I don't remember what exactly the reason was, they were discussing standard deviations and so forth, but she was the only person in the class who had any clue what any of this meant. So I think statistics is the most useful for most students class we teach at the high school level. And
Bill, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that in statistics, one learns to make sense of not just data, but also numbers and mathematical relationships in ways that are often not as accessible or not as offered as frequently in like a typical algebra or a pre-calculus or a calculus course. I think when kids are working with a spreadsheet and they're trying to convert between like counts and percents and trying to, organize numbers, they start seeing mathematical relationships in a different way that they didn't have before. So just from a pure kind of even understanding math perspective, it's a really useful thing, whether that's at the AP level or at the on level or at the pre-AP level. I think statistics provides kids multiple entry points to understand not just how data behave, but how numbers behave and how mathematical relationships might look and sound. So on that level, I think it's great. In terms of the gatekeeper game of college, it's so dependent on people who are more interested in ranking and sorting kids than on what they take away from it. So just on the side of the educator, I tend to side for stats to give more kids access to the math that they are supposed to demonstrate to get into college.
And Bob and Lee,
well,
or
can
Corey,
I have one more?
Yeah, go ahead, Corey.
Along with what Bill was saying, and not only for mathematics, but students have to justify everything they say in statistics in a way they generally don't have to in other mathematics courses. And that's something that is really useful beyond mathematics courses, but just in any presentation you have to make, in any discussion you have to have and support an opinion, being able to say, here's what I think because here's what I observed, and how to specifically back up a statement with relevant reasons.
And that ties in perfectly with the Debate Math podcast. So now, Bob and Lee, same question goes to you about students and families trying to choose between AP Calc and AP Stats. What are some valuable things currently in the AP Stats that you would like to share with them? Bob, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll dive in if you don't mind, Lee. There's actually two hypotheses here that I somewhat debate. Is first, that AP Stat needs to be a terminal course for students, and second, that there's this binary choice that you have to take either Calc or Stats. In my school, I would say that my audience is about 20% seniors, about 50% juniors, 11th graders, and 30% 10th graders. And I would encourage schools to think differently about their scheduling, and I know that can be a tricky conversation to have. How do you have students encounter AP Stats earlier and not make it, well, you can take that in 12th grade if you get to it? Because I agree with what a lot of Corey said, is that the mathematics and the argument that you learn within AP Stat can be helpful in many other courses. And I also think it's very helpful to students to get off of the traditional math sequence. So students are doing Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, maybe a pre-calc and then calc, and students get this perception that this math is this linear sequence of courses. It's nice to get them out of that sequence and see something that's a little bit different, and thinking about career paths and things they might want to do down the road. So I'd really advocate that if you can have students taking AP Stats in 11th grade, 10th grade for some students, it depends on the sophistication of the student. But in my school, once you've taken Algebra 2, you're able to take AP Stat, and I would encourage students to try to take it earlier and try to knock down this idea that it has to be Stats or Calc.
And I'll just add to what Bob said, because sometimes, for students, they don't have room in their schedule to take both, as much as we'd like them to be able to take both if that's what they want to do. And so, if a parent came to me and said, what do you think would be better for my child, AP Stat or AP Calc? They don't really have room in their schedule for both. I would, of course, ask, what are they thinking of doing, and whether they're pursuing something more that's in the humanities or arts or sciences. Stats is going to be great for everybody, because everybody will be a consumer of statistics no matter what field they go into. If they're going into, let's say, chemistry or physics, then maybe calculus, specifically physics would be, better for them if they were going to be a math major. I said that backwards. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if they were going into a hardcore science or math, then calculus might be good. But for anybody in general, statistics. And, I would ask the parent, so, when was the last time you've heard some statistics? All right. I've heard news headlines about statistics. When was the last time you heard a news headline about calculus? Okay, never, pretty much. So right there, statistics definitely is better for more people.
Great. I want to take us back to from Bill and Corey. I heard a lot about the way the credit all relies on one test, and so I want to ask Lee and Bob. I want to ask you, because of the way the course is designed with credit being the AP test at the end, are we just teaching to a test? Is there a problem that it's just a test at the end?
So I guess that's my turn to start this one, Bob.
You can have this one.
Yeah. So as somebody that leads workshops for teachers in AP statistics, there is that sense of well, I want to know, does this matter? Will this get points on the test type of thing? And so, yeah, there is a little bit of that emphasis because ultimately it comes down to teachers wanting their students to do well on this test. It comes down to schools wanting the students to do well on the test. I actually once had an administrator come to me and say, why is this student deciding not to take the exam? Because it was all about the number of exams per student, and putting their school up on a higher ranking because they had more students taking AP exams, not really even caring about how they did on the exam. So is it a little bit of that? Yeah. And so, I agree with Corey in that maybe that it can be addressed in a slightly different way with possibly having an artifact or something like that. So possibly changing the exam in some way might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I'm not sure this problem is exclusive to AP statistics. It really comes down to teachers being professionals and understanding that good instruction will lead to higher test scores. I also teach Algebra 1 within my courses, and we have a terminal course there in Pennsylvania, the Keystone exams. And certainly the teachers of Algebra 1 could be accused of teaching to the test in Algebra 1. So I don't know if this is a distinct problem to AP Stat, but I do agree with Lee that I'm very intrigued by some of the arguments from the opposing side about the sophistication of one test and the appropriateness of one test. And maybe that's a more broad conversation. But I don't think the teaching to the test is unique to AP statistics.
Then let me go to the other team about that. So you talked about some more like open-ended type assessment. Is there still a test? What does it look like? How does one even like grade this if every school is doing their own thing? Like, can you give us more an idea of what you're thinking of?
I think that agree that like anytime you set a set of standards or expectations and you're going to assess them, people are going to funnel towards those expectations. And I think that will happen anytime you're getting assessed. What I think is possible though is that if there is an artifact like the AP Computer Science Principles, they have two artifacts that must be presented. And one of the ones is actually writing a program and demonstrating certain things in the program that show an advanced level of understanding of how algorithms work. I think that, and having kids talk in an articulate and a specific way about what they did. But I think if AP Statistics considers moving to some kind of artifact-based thing, then we're actually shifting students' actions more closely to what's we need people to do in the 21st century, which is wrangle data, clean it up, choose the most effective exploratory data analysis tool for the situation and the context. And so I think that's where a revamp of what we're asking kids to do actually could produce more usable skills in their lives in the long run.
I think as far as tests go, the AP exam is one of the better ones I've seen. I think the questions are fairly conceptual in general. I think the quality of the questions and the rubrics for scoring them are generally pretty strong. But I think the issue for me is that the test is the only assessment. So how would we deal with grading an artifact like this? I know in the IB, the teacher grades those internal assessments, but a random sample of those is sent to the IB and they score them to ensure that the teacher is scoring them appropriately according to their guidelines. So there are ways to do it. We obviously have ways to do it in AP as well with computer science and with art, for example.
And I want to take this over to Bob and Lee now. So many AP Stats teachers I've spoke with have expressed that they feel that there's too many topics in the AP Stats course, and one in particular was even saying like we don't have time in AP Stats to explain to students what stats actually means. We just have to get them through and grind through the computations. How would you respond to that in terms of the AP Stats course as it is?
I would say that's a legitimate argument. The college professors I talk to, and if we're saying that AP Statistics is supposed to match the expectations of a first statistics course in college, there are many topics that we do in AP Stat that are not covered in many introductory stat courses, like some of the chi-squared and maybe some of the inference for slope. They might be, but my straw poll of the professors I talk to, they tend not to be. So I would agree that there is a lot, and this becomes a time of the year where teachers are trying to fit it all in. So I would advocate for looking at what topics really do match with a college level statistics course, and then doing a better job, a more robust job with the topics we have, And I'll bounce back on what Bill was saying earlier about technology. I fully endorse the idea that we should be infusing more simulations, move away from maybe rote hypotheses tests, which tend to dominate statistics this time of year, towards more authentic data. And one thing I've started to see on the exam, I'm grateful that we're starting to see more simulations and that sort of thing on the exam. But I've rambled away from the original question when I say that. So Lee, do you see the same thing I'm seeing with the parallels?
So yeah, I would say that there's definitely teachers that are worried about getting things in. And part of the problem is when the school year starts around the country. You know, I've got friends that teach in Arizona, and they're like, yeah, we're starting to review now. And it's like other teachers are like, wait a minute, you have a whole month and a half for review. You know, so part of it is that, you know, that some schools have 4 more weeks to teach the content. And if I had 4 more weeks to teach the content, I would definitely be able to get it all in. You know, but, you know, in terms of comparing it to college content, the course that I teach at college, we do not do 2-sample inference. So we don't, you know, do a 2-sample t-test, you know, for means. We don't do confidence intervals comparing 2 proportions. We don't do any of the 2-sample inference. So, but I think one of the reasons why the course is as broad as it is, you know, with, I think, talking to Bill earlier, I think he said there are 7 different types of hypothesis tests. Oh, okay, 9. You know, I think one of the reasons why it is that way is because there's this sense that we need to make sure we have the course accepted by as many colleges as possible, right? And so we're going to make sure we have enough stuff that more colleges will accept it. But, you know, maybe we need to really look at what courses, what topics are being taught in the courses, like Bob said, because I don't think it's everything that's in the current AP course.
Yeah, I was going to say that too about if it's going to be accepted by all colleges, if it's going to be accepted by my college, then it needs to have what my course has in it. So Lee's course doesn't teach 2-sample t-tests. Maybe mine does, but I don't teach chi-squared tests. So it's got to have, you know, everything that all of these courses might have in them to get as broadly accepted as possible.
And so kind of with that, we had some people on Twitter talking about how if you get too, you know, into the project-based stuff, you need to teach the basics first. Like, how important is it to really make sure they know all of these hypothesis tests or all these like key things before they go into a project? Like, is it important to keep a lot of things the way they are in the course?
I think it kind of depends on how you approach it. We spend a lot of time in my class on inference for proportions because that's the first time that they see inference. And then a fair amount of time on inference for means because now we're talking about a new test statistic T, which they haven't seen before. But once we get through those, the others, you've got the logic down, and then it's just sort of variations on a theme. So I think once they know the basics of interval estimates or significance tests, the details for any project they want to do could be looked up. They've got the idea. Here's the formula you need to calculate the standard error, but the basic ideas are the same.
I would argue there might be some value in reconceptualizing what the basics really are. And I think that, like, if we're talking about working with data and making sense of data, these are digital objects now. And for kids to be able to work with them, they have to do some of the basics are things like knowing how to retrieve data, knowing how to organize data, knowing how to clean data up. And so I think that as much as I appreciate the structural and the mathematical and the logical rigor that I think is attempted, that we're trying to do in some of the questions we ask in AP statistics, in trying to make sure we keep everything as like rigorous and as clear and as tight as possible for as many tests as possible, it makes me question kind of how much do we lose out on an opportunity to bring more kids into the fold, because maybe they don't feel that they're up to the task of doing all that stuff in order to get a decent enough grade on an AP exam. Or maybe they're denied access to the course at their school because they don't show the rigorous chops. but they could benefit from some of the other, what I would call more basic skills that a lot of students and adults still need to learn.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that real quick if I can.
Go.
When you talk about students dealing with authentic data, and hopefully it's data of their own choice, they're then personalizing the experience and hopefully are able to communicate a result more readily than if you simply give them problems from a book. One of the trickiest skills in general in AP statistics is having students write conclusions. And there's certainly ways to train students to write conclusions by giving them templates and fill things out. Like we're going to reject the null hypothesis because of this, that, and the other thing. But if students have been exposed to authentic data and they are interested in that data, then it makes it a lot easier for them to write a conclusion that they understand because they've dealt with the data all along. So when we talk about projects and trying to expose students to them, I think it's very important to do that because students can then write conclusions a lot clearer and more readily.
And I will say that when I've used projects with my students, they get the most out of that. That's just the most memorable experience for them. And I do have time for them to do, projects when I taught AP statistics. And I do have time right now in my college course for them to work on a project. And I agree that when a student has chosen their own data set, or possibly created their own data set, they're definitely much more invested. And for, administrators out there or department chairs out there that are saying, yeah, well, this student's not going to cut it in AP Stat, so we're not going to let them take AP Stat. You know what? Maybe they weren't cutting it in other courses before because it wasn't relevant to them, right? There was no reason for them to learn the content because when the content becomes relevant to the students, they're going to be more interested. And by being more interested and invested in the content, they're going to do better.
And kind of speaking of that, I want to talk a little more about tech. And my partner, this is a topic near and dear to him. He's actually finishing his graduate degree in statistics, and I see him coding things all day long. I'm just curious, Bob and Lee, are we ignoring how much tech is used in the real world? Like we have computers in our pockets with our iPhones and things, with the way the test and the course is now, or is it a good start for kids? I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
I'll start with that one. So this is based on my daughter's experience. My daughter is actually a statistics major at Baylor, and I actually had her in my HP statistics class. And we didn't do much with coding. We didn't do stuff with R. We did some stuff with Fathom. Of course, we used the graphing calculator. But for her, as she was getting into her statistics courses, that was one area where she kind of had a weakness. She didn't have that experience in coding. And so, if there was a way to get some more coding into AP Stat in terms of R or other things, I think it would be a good thing for all students.
And I'll add that it is amazing how in my years of teaching stat, how the technology has changed immensely. When we talk about things like sampling distributions, when I first taught the course, sampling distributions, the only way you could really conceptualize a sampling distribution was by taking sticky dots and putting them up on graph paper and looking to see what the class data looked like. And that's still a valuable experience, by the way. I still have a big sticky dot budget for my classroom. But it's amazing that you can go to various websites like Art of Stat or Statlet and get the idea of a sampling distribution fairly quickly and have a meaningful conversation about it. So having students use those tools and use those in conversation to support the AP statistics topics is something that I hope teachers are doing in their classroom. And there needs to be a lot of supports for that, though, because even teachers have different levels of comfort with the technology.
Coming right back to Bob and Lee. So, AP Stats textbooks, have they become more like user guides now, as opposed to like thought-provoking books? And then maybe speak to resources that like StatsMedic that I see a lot of AP Stats teachers using. Could you speak to those?
I think the short answer to your question is yes. I do use a textbook in terms, do I use a textbook? What does it mean to use a textbook, by the way? I follow a textbook in that it has a great order and it has nice problems in it and it has great resources, but you're right, there are so many different resources out there, and you brought up StatsMedic, SKU the Script is another great one. We're definitely supplementing. So yeah, textbook. I think one of the fears and one of the best piece of advice is a piece of advice I give to new teachers teaching stat is you cannot teach statistics like you've taught algebra 2. If you're starting with the textbook and going through section 10.1 and giving all the odd problems, you might do that in an algebra 2 course, but that generally does not work in an AP stat course. So supplementing with a lot of different things is something I do in my classroom now. And there's so many different resources out there now that using the textbook as a primary document is just something I don't do anymore.
That being said, I don't know when I started to do an electronic textbook for stat. There was some year where it was like, okay, everybody's got laptop computers now. Let's see if we can go to ebooks. And the actual electronic version of the stats textbook I was using at the time was great because there was these embedded videos that the students would watch. So in terms of a static textbook, not so much, but if you have something that is interactive for the students, that works really well, I think, to help supplement what it is that you're doing in the classroom.
And on the opposite side of that, for Corey and Bill, with changes that you're wanting to make in the AP Stats curriculum, what resources are out there for making projects, etc., that you would even offer or share with teachers?
Yeah, I am thinking of a couple resources. I'm actually a lot more, even though I'd love to see the course revamps, I'm kind of pro textbook in some ways. That's an incredibly thoughtful document that usually some really knowledgeable people or a team of really knowledgeable people have constructed and curated and sequenced. And one of the resources that isn't an AP book, but does an amazing job is called Statistical Reasoning in Sports. And most of the contexts are sports related, but they begin the statistical learning process with simulations so that students are able to make inferences from samples to populations from the very beginning. And they provide, I think, a lot of teachers with opportunities to get kids into the really challenging statistical thinking quickly. Also, there's about 4 or 5 new data science courses that are being developed. There's one here through UCubed in California, and UCLA has one, data science courses where students get their hands dirty with working with data. And a lot of the learning is done through laboratories and are lab-based activities. And so that's an emerging course that is attempting to really mirror the same kind of actions that modern statisticians do. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities to start exploring what the new data science courses have as tools. Some of the kids that work in statistics now that I've taught came from my sports research course, not from AP statistics.
Somebody once said to me about statistics textbooks, I actually think it's true about all math textbooks, is the most important criteria for selecting one is the quality of the exercises, because that's what kids typically are doing on a day-to-day basis, and that's what they start to see as the important stuff. So I think from that standpoint, I mean, some source of problems for students to work on, a good textbook is hard to beat for that. Of course, you can find other problems in other places, but to have a nice set of well thought out questions for students to answer, a textbook is a great source for those. And I think the statistics textbooks in recent years have gotten really good with their explanations of things too. But yeah, I do think it's a guide, because I think students need to experience statistics, and that comes from things that we do, and that's going to be difficult for them to get from reading a textbook. But once we've experienced things and talked about things, the textbook can be a great place for them to go and kind of have things summarized for them.
Very good. Okay, so I'm thinking a lot. I think it was Lee who said something about like in calc, you never see these topics again. In the headlines, you never see the calc topic again, right? And stats is super relevant. So this question is for both sides, but whether we keep the course as is or make some changes to it, what are the things that are most important that students would like miss out on if they don't take this course, that should stay in this course always? What are one or two things that really stick out to you, especially for those of us who have not taught AP Stats? And maybe I'll let Lee and Bob start.
I'll start. Yeah, I'll start with one thing. I think the importance of understanding how data is collected, like the importance of a random sample. Like, why does something need to be a random sample? Why can't I just ask my friends, who they're going to vote for in the next election, and use that to estimate who's going to win the election. So I would say the importance of sampling and bias that might happen in sampling. If random sampling is not done, I would say that's one big idea. Bob, can you think of some other ideas?
Yeah, I just think it's opportunity. About halfway through my course last year, I had students do an infographic. And it was very open-ended. I said, I want you to go online, find some career or some association with statistics to something that interests you. And what they came back with was, it was pretty compelling and amazing. A lot of students found biostatistics, some found things in the media, some found things in sports. And it really opened a lot of the students' eyes. And the comment I got from a lot of students is, hey, wait, this exists. This is a job that people do. Yes, and they're pretty lucrative and pretty abundant out there if you can find them. So I'm not so worried about how students do in the exam. I hope they do well in the exam. But if anything else, I hope that it opens students' eyes that there's this whole world of careers that they can pursue based in statistics and maybe combine with other passions.
Yeah, I think two big things that I think are really valuable takeaways. I think the concept of understanding a sampling distribution is really, really powerful. It is challenging and it requires seeing it from a lot of different ways. And I think any good statistics experience helps. That's a takeaway I think is really valuable. The other big one is kind of what Bob was alluding to specifically, is like contextualizing mathematics and turning numbers into conclusions and turning conclusions or ideas that are non-numerical into something numerical. And just going back and forth between those two things, and kind of where do we lose fidelity or where do we gain clarity in going back and forth in that process. I think it's really hard to replicate that outside of a statistics course.
I think one thing, and this is something that I think is missing a bit from the AP course, is the kids get some of it sort of by just learning about the background of statistics, but being consumers of statistics. And so what Lee mentioned about the importance of how data are collected, people don't understand that in general. And I think that's a huge thing. I think understanding what a confidence interval is, and we never hear the phrase confidence interval in reports, but we do hear about margin of error, which and students who have taken statistics understand that that's the same thing. So I think just as consumers of statistics, there are some things that AP Statistics does a good job on, and some things they could do a better job on. Just educating people for how, what do these things mean when you read about them.
And that's some great notes to end on. I think that ends our questioning round. We will now end by giving each side 2 minutes to make their final arguments to you.
And we're going to begin with the pro side with Lee. Lee, you can begin now.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for letting me share in the debate today. This has been really fun. So there are several reasons why AP Statistics is great. First, it's on par with college level introductory courses and allows students to be exposed to college content and possibly earn college credit. The skills related to statistical reasoning and argumentation are integrated throughout the course. The course prepares students to make decisions in a world driven by data. In fact, students have often reported back to us that they can't hear a statistics news headline without wondering how the data was collected. Third, the professional development facilitated by the AP Statistics community should serve as a model for all educators, with collaboration, best practices, and authentic learning as a focus. And finally, we agree with the opposition that technology and authentic data should be a part of all stats courses, and hope that the AP Statistics exam can move in that direction in the future. We hope you agree with us and vote in favor of the resolution. AP Statistics is great.
Thank you. And with the final word, we have Bill Phil and Corey Andreessen.
Hey, everybody, it's really good to see everyone again and to participate in this. So thank you guys. AP Statistics can become great again. And we believe that this can happen if we incorporate more technological resources and tools to actually give kids experience doing statistics in a way that's more faithful to the actual statistical process, where they actually create a question and a hypothesis before they have the data. Currently in the existing AP Statistics exam, that's flipped. If we incorporate actual computers, coding, programming, we give students the opportunity to manage data and use simulations to make predictions and inference in ways that will take them not just through the course and not just through one college credit class, but give them skills that they can use for their entire lives and in their careers.
All right. Thank you all. That concludes our debate. You've given us so much to think about here about AP Stats, and now it's up to our listeners to take a moment, ponder the arguments, and consider what resonated with you. And go to our Twitter @DebateMathPod to vote for who you think was more convincing in this debate.
We will leave it up for about a week and tally the results before our next episode.
Again, huge thanks to all four of our guests. You were so thoughtful and connected on so many places of agreement, which we really loved. And I learned more about the stats curriculum because I've never taught AP Stats.
And also thanks to all that are listening. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this debate. And also don't forget to vote.
And as we wrap up, Lee, where can listeners find you?
They can find me on Twitter. MathTeacher24 is my Twitter handle. And I also blog from time to time at blogspot.com/MathTeacher24.
And Bob, where can we find you?
I'm on Twitter as well @BobLoch, BOBLOCH, and I still blog occasionally at mathcoachblog.com.
And Bill, where can listeners find you?
On Twitter @roughlynormal.com.
And Corey, other than the Netherlands, where can they find you?
Probably Twitter @Corey Andreessen, COREYANDREASEN. And you'll find me shooting my mouth off about various topics.
Very good. That's it for us today, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.